local or a parameter. I want to throw those in together. And no, not you said invocation, right? Or what did you say before?
Methods, but that's not true.
That's not true. Because, why is that not true? Well, because if I have a method decal, then the method decal has a name that represents that name. That's not a name expression. If I have an invocation, then that invocation has a name that represents the name of the method, and that's not a name expression either. So I'm looking at all the places where you have an expression, i.e. where you're using the value of just a variable name. And when I say variable, I mean variable, of course, a variable is not a class, but you can definitely have a place where you use a name as a class, for example, in a cast or in a target for an invocation of a static method. There's one more. A field, yeah, absolutely. You see, that makes it a little complicated now because the mess is complete when you look at this. Because that A right there is what? And that X is?
Local.
And that, well, that's actually a parameter, right? And that W is a local. Look at them, you can't tell the difference, right? They look all the same. And the worst part is that A right here, referring to a field, really should have been a field ref with a null target. But it's not. Why isn't it? Well, because there's no way the parser, when it built the parser tree, could know that this was a field with a null target and not a reference to a local or a parameter. So that's why the name expression can be those three things. Now, how do I then define, or how do I then figure out if the reference to that name is indeed valid? Well, let's see. What takes precedence? Fields, local parameters, or classes? Local parameters, right? Okay. So, step one, look in current scope. Step two, well, depending on how you implement it, there might not be a step two. That's the question mark anyways. Right? And step three, profit. You people need to go home and watch South Park. What the hell's wrong with you? And step one is collect underpants, by the way. So, when do I not have a step two? I don't have a step two if the parent of the symbol table holding the parameters points to the field table. Because then the scope change search starting at current scope will end up going into the field table anyways. So this might or might not be, but look in field table. And finally, three, look in class table. So you might have to end up doing three different searches in order to find what you're looking for. Let's see, what else do I have? We have the block as a class, so I suppose we can make it miscellaneous. Actually, class decal. Why do I want to visit class decal? I might want to set current class. I need to know what class I'm in so that I can go find this field tables and method tables and all this other stuff. Constructor decal, name expression, invocation, parent decal. Then I think we're just one away, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Which one should we take? This one I can never remember why we have it. Now I have to look at it. Oh, now I do remember why we have it without looking at it. I'll tell you why, and you will have absolutely no idea. This. So, next phase, we have to do type check. And let's say that I'm going through this and I get to here. What's the type of W? How do you know?
I'm looking at it.
No, you can't do that.
You didn't say that.
Well,
Am I supposed to be the compiler?
yes, you're supposed to be the compiler. Yes, you're always supposed to be the compiler. You're not supposed to be any smarter than the compiler.
Let me just look at the scope to see what.
No, you look at the declaration, right?
Oh yeah, well.
Well, where is the declaration? Somewhere, somewhere.
Oh, it's not being. Oh, it's not
I don't have access to it. What do I do when I go and look up W? I follow my scope chain and say, okay, I ended up in a scope somewhere that had the name W on the left-hand side and a declaration in the right-hand side. It would have been hella nice if I'd actually kept that declaration somewhere close to the actual use. Because if I don't, then every time I need to know something about the declaration of the use of a name, I have to go look it up. So for type checking purposes, when I hit this W, I gotta go into this scope chain that I have to maintain for type checking as well. Remember, this was a dynamic scope chain that grew and shrunk and grew and shrunk. So I would have to create that for the type checking phase as well in order to make sure I get the right parameter or the right local or the right field. And that's a mess. It would be a lot nicer if when I looked this one up, I said, okay, this one is fine because its declaration is right there. This one is fine because its declaration is right there. This one is fine because its declaration is all the way over there. This one is fine because its declaration is right there, and this one is good because its declaration is right there. So if we could, with everything that could actually use a name, associates its declaration, and in particular for the name expression. And we can fairly easily do that because we can just throw in a field in all of those nodes that holds the reference to that declaration. So all uses have a MyDecl field that should be a reference to the declaration. So in other words, once I've gone and looked it up and found the declaration, then I update the MyDecl field in the name expression, the field ref, in the invocation, so on and so forth. So if you look at, I still haven't told you why I implemented this and this, but the reason I implemented this and this is just to set this MyDecl, and that's all I do in there, and I'll show it to you here in a second. And now if I could spell, we might be able to do this right. So as you can clearly see here, there we go. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4 things that have MyDecls. There is the name expression. We set that one to AST. That's a type. And we have to because that MyDecl could either be of type local decl, ram decl. They have var decl in common. It could be a field decl, or it could be a class decl. What do those 4 things have in common? AST. So we have to set that to AST. A field ref always references a field decl. So I can set the MyDecl in field ref to be a field decl. And a class type always references a class decl, so I can set that one to be a class decl. And then there's just this weird one here in var that has a MyDecl. Why does var have a MyDecl? And it's just for silly reasons. And it's because, does anybody remember how a local decl or a param decl looks? Name? Well, there's a type somewhere. And then there's a name. And then there's, actually, that's not quite true. Let's look it up, because I can't remember either.
Type, and var type.
Type and
Var.
type var. Type and var. Oh, type and var. Of course, this should to be a capital type. And what does the var have? It has a name and an expression. And an expression has a type. So when I go and visit this var and I figure out what that expression type is, then I got to make sure that it's compatible with that type. Too bad I can't get back up here. So it was nice if this var had a myDecl that points back to its own declaration, because now I can follow the var decl and get the type, and now I can do type checking properly. So it's just a small little technicality that is really not all that important, because when you get to that, you realize that if you don't have it, things break. So that's not so important. But so that means those three things: a class type, a field ref, and a name expression, need to have these myDecls updated. Okay. Here you can see is the implementation of this. And I, at some point, want to set the myDecl, and I want to set it to a class decl, which is this class decl that I'm passing in arg here. That's the current class. That maybe should have been named current class. And I just create a class type and set that as the type, and we're good to go. So this one I've done for you, and it's just technicality that needs to be done, so don't worry about that. But I want to show you, here's param-decl, how easy it really is, right? There's some printing at the beginning, then I have no idea why I go visit the param-decl super. But this one here is the one that's important, right? Into the scope, you put the name of the parameter and the declaration. Done. Now let me show you the name expression. It's not particularly complicated, but it sort of illustrates really well what's going on. So let's see. Go into the current scope and call get on the name. So I take the name of the name expression and I look in the current scope. If I don't get anything back, then there was no parameter or local in that scope chain. Now go and try to see if I can find a field that has that name. I look in the current class, and if I didn't find anything there, then go and look at the class table. And if I didn't find anything there, then I can throw an error. Then I do a little bit of nice printing. And then I remember to set the myDecl at the very bottom. So, there you go. In here, I ask you to write a whole bunch of other methods, namely get method. So implement that. The method description is right there, so that shouldn't be too hard. Same thing with get field, that's right there. And then there's a whole bunch of sort of helper methods that we need to do, which is just grunt work, nothing really complicated. For example, we have to make sure that methods of the same name return the same return type, and that if you're doing Espresso Plus, that abstract classes have implementations, that fields are unique so that I don't re-implement fields. You can do that in Java, you can't do it in Espresso, because it's just a pain. Take a look at this one here at the bottom, for example. That's how I do a block. Open the scope, so current scope is current scope.new scope. Visit the block. This is the same as saying visit children. You can do it in two ways. You can either say super.visitBlock, which calls the original implementation of visit block in visitor.java, which really just calls visit children. Or you can say bl.visit children, same thing. You can also pick out one child and just say .visit on that if you need to. We'll need to do that in the type check. So, but anyways, when I come back from there, I say current scope is equal to current scope to closed scope, so that removes the scope that I just opened up there. And remember to return null at the end, and you're good to go. So there you go. Shall I open it?
Only if you want us to make it.
I suppose.
Yes.
I don't know how to do that. The Espresso R open 3. phase 2 is closed, phase 3 is open, and that should have a brand spanking new power file, 229/14/19. Yes, that means I kept you 4 minutes too late. Sorry about that. With respect to scoping, there are a few little things that we still need to talk about, which pertain to static versus dynamic scoping. We can either do that next time, or we can wait until we are done with the parsing. I haven't decided yet, but if I forget to mention it, remind me at some point. We'll have to come back and talk about it. It takes all of 15 minutes, but it's important to just talk about that. Oh, when can you get this done by?
Tell you on Monday?
Shall we discuss that on Monday?
Yeah.
Well, you know this is going to end up with me making a suggestion and you probably fine.
What's your suggestion?
Monday next week?